Boo!
You got a cool hat.
It's a nice little festive hat. I didn't have time to make a musket.
That'd have been controversial, huh?
Yeah, might have been. I don't know.
Damian Sandow watching on Instagram.
No way.
Oh, yeah. My friend Damian Sandow. Aaron Stevens, known as Damian Sandow in WWE.
That's awesome.
We'll go ahead and get going here. You ready?
Absolutely.
All right. This is Jeff Townsend, and you're tuning in to a Thanksgiving edition live stream of Your Scary Stories, the show where we share your scary stories or a collection of scary stories from around the web, live every other Monday-ish at 10:45-ish. It's all ish around here these days. Tonight's episode will feature only Thanksgiving true scary stories, and I just couldn't be more excited. How are you doing, Luke?
Fantastic. Yeah, I've been looking forward to this. I think I found all my stories right after the Halloween episode. Because then I was like, I found these ones that I thought, oh, these are great.
You're that excited? You just went and found all the stories instantly?
Yeah, because I was wanting to read them a couple times, make sure I didn't fumble them, obviously. But yeah, I was excited and looking for like interesting ones, different ones, because Thanksgiving is not necessarily a holiday that's spooky, but there are some spooky things that happen all the time.
That's what I thought until I read some of these stories.
Yeah.
I'm confused with that creepy Thanksgiving movie that came out like last year or something. Maybe it was
yeah.
No, I don't know.
You
watched that movie?
Yeah, I loved it.
Yeah, I thought it was pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like groundbreaking or anything, but for like
it was
goofy horror movie, yeah, that was good.
We're live across 8 platforms right now. We are on, let's see, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, Kick, Twitch. What am I missing? I'm missing other things. Facebook. What didn't I say?
I don't know.
LinkedIn. We're even live on LinkedIn right now. Yep. There we go. YouTube, of course. Thanks for joining us. We're going to get into some stories. I think I have 3 tonight. You have 3 too, right?
I do, yeah.
YouTube, yeah. Viv Games. Can't forget about YouTube. Twitter is the biggest crowd, but, YouTube seems to be the most dedicated. Would you agree with that?
I've found that to be true with most streaming in general that I've watched. It seems like the YouTube crowd always shows up, and but Twitch can be a little bit fickle.
I'm glad you used that word. Well, do you want to do the honors? Me start queuing up some music. You're going to kick things off tonight?
Yeah, sounds good to me. This was the story that I first found, and when I was searching for these stories, I thought this was a good one to start off with. I met a dead relative. It was Thanksgiving 2019. My family was holding Thanksgiving dinner at my grandmother's sister's house. She just moved to Oklahoma, so my grandma wanted us to spend Thanksgiving with her. When we got there were a few others, but we still had to wait for the rest to show up. So in the meantime, we just did whatever. My grandma's sister breeds Pomeranians for a living, so her house is basically a Pomeranian farm. Me and my brother wanted to check the puppies out, and we needed to pass time, so that's what we did. She has 2 large pens outside, and a pen in her garage to keep the newborn puppies and their mothers in until they're ready to be sent outside. It was pretty wet outside, so I decided to go out, and then we went into the garage to stay out of the mud. When we came in, there was an older man sitting in a recliner watching the puppies. I know it's kind of bizarre to just have a recliner standing around in your garage, but that's where my grandma's sister would sit when she was taking care of the puppies. There's always a lot of them, so she likes to be comfortable while doing it. We said hi and introduced ourselves. He introduced himself as Dean and said he was my grandmother's sister's husband. We kept chatting for about 30 minutes and then left. We went back into the kitchen to see the progress and to see that they were setting the table. They called for everyone to come to the table. I went back to the garage to get Dean, but he wasn't there. I went back to the kitchen and told my grandmother that I went to get Dean, but he wasn't in the garage like I last saw him. She responded with, "Huh?" I repeated myself and she said, "Thanksgiving isn't the day to make those kind of jokes." I was confused. I told her I wasn't making any jokes. He said he was in there earlier. She looked me in the eyes and says, "Dean has been dead for 5 months. He wasn't brought up at dinner for obvious reasons, but I told my brother later that night when we got home about what Grandma said. I've been back to her house numerous times since then, and every time I go into that garage, all I can think about is that 30-minute conversation we had. My brother refuses to go back into the garage.
What? What's the disconnect here? How do you not know this?
Well, this person didn't live near them.
Distant. Yeah.
And then they finally moved near them recently.
I guess we've all had some distant relatives. Still pretty crazy to not know that, though.
I assume this is also probably a younger person because they're, just wanting to go out and play with the puppies while everyone else is working.
What's up with garage stories? I don't know.
I actually had another garage story that didn't make the cut for tonight. That was also creepy, but
Aaron Stevens, Damian Sandell says that the Pomeranian farm might be the scariest part. I had a Pomeranian once, terrible dog.
My brother had one too.
I know there's supposed to be good dogs. This dog in particular, oh man, terrible dog. Anyway,
I'm not a fan of the smaller breed dogs, just in general. But
only if you can feed them Nutter Butters. That's the only time you're a fan. Anyways, go ahead.
Did that myself, but this is one of those stories that I can see myself slightly in. There are people who I'm related to that I don't know the whole story with their family all the time, like even cousins and some aunts and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So I could see myself as a kid not knowing when someone's husband had passed.
Yeah.
Right.
It's important to know that they're a kid for sure. I'll give you that. They're a kid. They wouldn't know. That's still creepy though. How old was this person when they passed?
I don't know, but it was this person's grandmother's sister's husband, so probably in their 60s, 70s.
Can you imagine going to the garage? You don't even know. It's just some ghost. And you find out like 20 minutes later.
They had like a 30-minute long conversation about
That's
the
the
dog.
craziest part. They talked for that long.
Yeah.
And he never got the feeling that this was a spirit or a ghost.
Yeah, that's pretty weird, right? And it's actually kind of odd for a ghost story. Normally, an encounter isn't something that lasts that long. So that makes it
not
all the more interesting to me.
Usually it's like one thing said, or there's just like they see something. To have a full-out conversation is phenomenal.
Another thing that made me like this particular story and why I picked it, I can also relate to the style of this holiday. Like they have people working in the kitchen and then like the kids are going off and doing stuff. That's something very much that our family would do. So like you wouldn't know what the kids are up to for like.
Oh, for sure. We kind of did our own thing back in the day.
Yeah, I could see this. I could really see all of this being legit.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought it was spooky, kind of creepy, but also like sad because like clearly he wanted to be part of the holidays still.
Yeah, I guess that'd be a time to, show yourself. Sounds like a long-standing tradition that they had, I assume.
Yeah.
So,
especially if this Pomeranian thing was something that they did while he was still alive and wanted to be around it still.
Yeah, I mean, it's a special time of it's personally one of my favorites holidays. It might be up there just because I like to eat, obviously. Look at me. It's just always a good time and you're around people, loved ones. So this guy, what was his name? Dean just wanted to be around his family, I guess,
Yeah.
And I can see what you're saying, like, because you sometimes, like, obviously went to your house on Thanksgiving, but went there all the time. But sometimes there's, like, a certain family member's house that you go to, like, once or twice a year for these occasions, basically. And I could see where you, like, imagine that. Like, imagine, like, the whole year wait until you had to go there next year. Like, what would you be thinking?
Yeah, that would be really nuts. Thinking, like, oh, man, is he going to be there? Am I going to see him again?
This game says he's going to haunt everyone's Thanksgiving. What holiday would you pick to come back on?
Well, shoot, man, that's hard to say. I really love Christmas. I love Thanksgiving, and I love the 4th of July. So, like, those three are really hard to pick between.
I think I would have to come back on Christmas, but Thanksgiving would be up there. Because, you can't, like, you're not going to eat when you're a ghost, right? Now, that would be crazy. If you ate a meal with the guy, now that would be a story I'd like to hear.
That would be nuts, yeah.
Dean and I, carved the turkey together, and we, ate turkey together and ate pumpkin pie or, whatever else. That would be insane. Stuffing.
You never know. It might happen sometime.
Might. Perfect story, as usual, kick the night off. It's believable.
It was a bite-sized story, too.
It's a bite-sized story. You want me to go on with mine now?
Oh, absolutely.
This is called Trap Set on Thanksgiving. This is my first time sharing this story on the internet with anybody. I hope you and others can learn from this experience and apply it to if, God forbid, this would ever happen to you. I work for a company that forces me to travel a lot. I usually fly, but because I know how crazy airports are on holidays, I thought it would be a smarter decision to rent a car and drive home overnight, avoiding the nightmare that would be an airport on Thanksgiving week. I started to drive home, and even though I was a little tired, I was able to cruise from about 11 p.m. to 3 a.m., as there were barely any cars at all on the road. Shortly after 3 a.m., I saw a van that was sideways in the middle of the road on the highway. Thankfully, I had my brights on and was able to see the vehicle with plenty of time for a safe stop. There was also an elderly woman near the side of the road who was waving me down frantically. Cautiously, I slowed down and came to a stop. The woman walked up to my window, motioning for me to roll the window down. I rolled it down the slightest bit, making sure she couldn't even fit her hand in there or something. In an old crackling voice, she said, "Young man, can you please help me change my tire?" I glanced over and saw that she did indeed have a flat tire. She said to me, "I ran over something and my tire became flat almost instantly." She then motioned to what looked like a piece of plastic in the road or something. I didn't want to, but I got out of the car and walked by the van and told her that she needed to move the van to the side of the road for safety. There's no way we could change the tire right in the middle. That would be completely dangerous. She agreed and moved it off to the side of the road. As I began to change the tire, I had a million things running through my mind. Number one thing, why did I have to be the one who got flagged down to do this? I was almost finished taking the flat tire off, and I noticed I didn't see the woman around anymore. I was providing my own light source with my cell phone. I looked up to ask if she could help and realized she was gone. I looked all around the vehicle and didn't see anybody. Nothing but pitch black darkness other than my headlights, which were providing some slight light in the general direction. Well, luckily for me, I had my keys in my pocket, and I locked the door to my car when I got out. I walked back over to my car, and the woman was trying to get into my vehicle. I told her to get away from my car before I called the police. She laughed at me and said, "It'll be at least 30 minutes until anyone could get out here." Just as I was trying to get this crazy person away from my car so I could leave, I noticed a man get out of the van. This man must have been lying on the floor or something because I didn't see him sitting in any of the seats when I looked inside the car when I was in the process of changing the tire. The man seemed to be average build. He started to approach me, his hand in his pocket, which really started to make me worry about my safety. The woman then jumped on my back and attempted to choke me. I was able to shake her off quickly and throw an elbow directly into her throat. She began coughing and gasping uncontrollably, which gave me the break I needed to get away. The guy who was approaching me stopped and devoted his attention to her, and I got in the car and sped away as fast as I could. I have never driven that fast before in my entire life. The adrenaline from the events fueled me for the remainder of the trip home. I know if someone else told me this story, I would ask, "How dumb can you be?" Then emphasize how idiotic was it of a decision to get out of the car. I'm just glad that I was able to get out of the situation unharmed and get home to my family. After police reports were filed, I unfortunately never got any further information. I wish I had glanced at their license plate. That may have helped in identifying them later. Please, let this be a lesson for anyone out there. Trust your instincts, especially in situations that can affect your safety.
Jesus.
Old lady jumped on his back, man.
That's nuts. Yeah, that's scary as hell. It reminded me of a couple stories I'd heard of people meeting up and then like someone like, showing up out of the back of the car or something like that. And then, the attack. When that guy, got out of the van, I was like, holy crap, this is bad.
Can you imagine how terrifying that would be? You're just trying to get home for Thanksgiving to be with your family. Just see this man step out of the van. And you were just there and didn't see anybody in there.
He described it, it's like he knew he shouldn't get out and stuff like that. And like, there's points in life where something bad's going to happen.
Yeah.
So like, you're pumped up, you're ready, you're trying to keep an eye out. That's probably the only reason why this guy's not dead. Or this person's not dead.
Viv Games is talking about how he probably would have fell for that too.
Yeah, I mean, an older lady asking for help in the middle of nowhere.
On Thanksgiving too.
Yeah.
Like that time period, right? You're coming home for Thanksgiving coming to your family's house for Thanksgiving. And I don't know, it might put you in the mood to be extra helping.
As far as you know, this person is too, right?
Yeah.
There's always that thing in the back of your head where you kind of gotta think, is this the end? If something bad was to go down, can I get out of here? You know, you wouldn't think you'd have to worry about that with like some random old lady, but you never know what the hell's out there. You do want to help some elderly person in trouble, but yeah, you definitely got to keep an eye out. It's scary.
I think one of my favorite parts is how he made sure to really explain that he landed that elbow into her throat. And the coughing and gasping for air that came afterwards.
You know, I think if I was retelling that story after surviving it, I would too.
Yeah.
Man, I just wrecked her.
Well, I meant like if she was able to stay on your back a few more seconds, maybe that would give the time for that guy to get there, and God knows what would have happened.
Yeah. So, yeah, wow, that is horrifying. It reminds me, there's actually a particular story that it reminded me of was this Craigslist killer back when Craigslist was, first started up.
Oh, yeah.
This guy got someone to meet them somewhere, and then he brought like a weapon. Person he was meeting, her boyfriend was there too, but he ended up killing the boyfriend and then cutting off his head.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, and so like, I'm just thinking like this guy would be dead somewhere in the ditch had he not gotten away.
Yeah. And yeah, man,
Sure.
I just can't imagine your family just like you're just trying to get there for Thanksgiving and something, heaven forbid, were to happen to you. I'd be a little skeptical of somebody pulling their car in the middle of the road with a flat tire, right? I mean, I guess
I've seen dumber things. So like it's not out of the realm of possibility, but
it's easy to say like, we say this all the time, but this is really the case for this one. It's easy to say, I would have done this, I would have done that. You're not in that situation. So it's really hard to know how you would exactly react to the whole thing.
Yeah, no, this is one of those moments where if you actually are trying to critique what this person did in this situation, you're way off base because like you weren't there, you don't know his mindset at the time, you don't know how it looked. Yeah, even like he in retrospect was like, I shouldn't have done this. But yeah, everyone knows that they shouldn't have done the wrong thing in retrospect.
Captain Hindsight.
Yeah.
Yeah, I must play the video, but I'll spare you the pain of it. You're usually Captain Hindsight.
Yeah.
The intent had to be to steal the car, maybe?
Yeah, I would say so, probably.
Is this a story you would remember and share every Thanksgiving, or would you kind of keep it to yourself?
I would tell this to everybody, every day.
Not even Thanksgiving, just every day.
Yeah, because this is not a thing that you should know is a possibility.
Would it ruin Thanksgiving for you?
No.
Or does it make you appreciate it even more, maybe?
Yeah, I think I would just be more thankful than ever, and then I would eat so much that I passed out for a whole day.
I just don't know how I'd react to the whole thing. I really don't. Obviously, I'd want to help an elderly lady, but luckily he had good instincts. I think that comes down, like he said, he ended it with trust your instincts. He was very aware of his surroundings. Like, he could have just kept changing that tire and not even like she'd vanished. Maybe he thought she just stepped away for a lot of things could have happened, but he was very aware of the situation.
Yeah. Could have gone so much worse, so much easier to go bad.
We're diving deep into the stories now. Are you ready for yours?
I am ready.
Is it deep too?
It's a little bit deeper, and this one's a little more mystical. I wouldn't say that it's a scary story in the classical sense. This is more of like an eerie thing, and also kind of has a little bit of ties to the black dog. You'll see what I'm saying when I get to it.
Okay, let me start the music.
I saw a shapeshifter. I am hoping that by posting here, I may connect with someone who has also experienced something similar or have heard of others who experienced something similar. Here is my story. This experience happened approximately 1:20 a.m. Thanksgiving morning 2018. I live in Southwest Washington State and have rented a vacation home in Lincoln City, Oregon to accommodate mine and my sister's family, who was flying in from Hawaii for the Thanksgiving holiday. We had all arrived at the rental around 3 p.m. About 7:30 p.m., my son started yelling for me. He said my 1-year-old grandson had gotten into my case with my blood pressure meds, and sure enough, one of my pills was missing. We panicked and called poison control, who told us to call 911 as soon as possible. They sent out an ambulance and took my grandson to a small hospital in the area. Staff did what they could, but told us they were not equipped for the situation, and my grandson needed to be transported to Randall's Children's Hospital in Portland, Oregon. So, on Thanksgiving Eve, a pediatric ambulance was sent from Randall's to Lincoln City, about 2.5 to 3 hour drive due to holiday traffic. It arrived around midnight to pick up my grandson. My son's wife rode in the ambulance with my grandson back to Randall's. Me and my son went back to the beach house to get diapers and clothes, and started to drive to Randall's at about 12:30. Here is where we encountered something that I and my son will never forget as long as we live. We had been on the road for about an hour and had just passed the Spirit Mountain Casino on Highway 18. And we were in the area. It was all hay farmland in between Bellevue and McMittville. The road has 2 lanes only, and it's definitely a long, deserted road, especially at that hour of the night. The ride had been very emotional, as I felt extremely guilty for having packed my meds in a side pocket of a tote bag where my grandson was able to access it. I was terrified for him and crying. My son was also upset, and although he was trying to hide it, I felt he blamed me. Here's the crazy part. As we were driving, I noticed my son slightly drifting in the road. He was falling asleep. Twice I asked him if he was okay to drive and to be careful. So being that I was very concerned that he might fall asleep, I was very aware and up watching him in the road, make sure he would not fall asleep. As we were driving down this road, going about 55 miles an hour, in the distance we both saw what was at first we thought was a deer running in our lane of the road, coming straight at us. It was not a deer, but a golden-colored horse. It must have been about 250 to 300 feet away at that point. It was closing faster as we were traveling at about 55 miles an hour, as I said. As it got about 150 feet away, it leaped upwards and morphed instantly into a giant owl right before our eyes. The wingspan stretched past our lane in the road. Me and my son estimate it was about 15 feet wide. This thing was enormous. As soon as we saw that, my son yelled out, "What the fuck?" and swerved the car to the left to avoid it, and just as he did this, the owl immediately landed about 50 feet ahead of us to our right, and in a little area outside the white line, like the bike path area. The owl tucked its head and its wings into its chest as if it was scared or trying to hide. As we drove past it, I got a good look at it out my window with its head and wings tucked in. All still came up to around the bottom of the Subaru. It seemed a little bit wider than the width of a beach ball, so it was around 3.5 feet tall, 2 feet wide. The thing was mind-blowingly big. Now, as soon as this happened, it was almost as if a trance came over us. It affected us both in the same ways. We both did not speak a word the entire rest of the drive at all until we got to the hospital. We both lost all feelings of being tired and felt like a calm alertness and awareness took over. I never even felt the fear he would fall asleep after the encounter. The memory of the experience was crystal clear, but the curiosity and wonder, or even awe, did not hit us until driving through the same area the next afternoon after my grandson was discharged. It's like we suddenly both said, "And what the heck was that thing we saw last night?" And it all started pouring out from both of us, the exact same thing that we saw. My son's wife was asking us questions about it, and we blurted out the exact same answers. It was mind-blowing. To this day, we talk about it and wonder, what did we witness that night? We both agree that this seemed to be some sort of mystical creature or shapeshifter. We also both agree that whatever it was good and meant us no harm. It may have been a guardian, or maybe it was something that we witnessed by accident and we weren't meant to see. Either way, the fact that we both saw it, I feel extremely lucky and blessed to have been seeing proof with my own eyes that animal spirits or shapeshifters or magical creatures do exist. Makes me wonder about stories of fairies and mermaids and Pegasus, and what might just be true. I will note that we found out that he did not eat the capsule, as we found it in the room when we went to go get his clothes from the house.
That's a good way to end it, to know that terrifying thing as a parent. But
Yeah.
back to the scary part of it, it'd really make you question your sanity.
Yeah.
That's a hell of a tale. Just think about that.
Yeah.
It's a golden horse, right?
Golden horse.
Then in a second, notice in a split second, it just transforms into an owl, a
Yeah.
big ass owl.
This reminds me of that story we talked about with the black dog, because there was also a benevolent being in that story.
Yeah.
And this was similar. It kind of gave them peace and made them feel better. It wasn't necessarily something evil like so many of the shapeshifter stories we tell on here.
Yeah. Some theories going on in the chat here. Some good news at the end. Perhaps the spirit actually removed the capsule and returned it to the room.
That was something that came to my mind, actually. It definitely felt like a guardian spirit.
Where was this at?
This is in Washington. No, this was in Oregon. This is in Oregon. They are from Washington State.
Gotcha. Yeah, same. It's not like
not far from each other, but
not skinwalker country.
No. So this is a part of the country that isn't coming up in a lot of our stories. We don't have too much in the Northwest so far. So I was excited about that, but also like it felt peaceful. Like it is something scary in its own right, some sort of mystical creature that's so
What
hard.
about that? From like a symbolic standpoint, is the golden horse or the owl significant? An owl seems like something that might symbolize something.
Usually it's wisdom, something ancient. Gold is, prosperity in almost every culture around the world. I don't know what this was. I should have done a little more due diligence and looked up more into that area as far as this goes, but I read this and I was like, I was filled with like, you get this sense of dread in the first part of the story, the part that's in the real life, of this pill going missing that could, potentially harm this child.
For sure.
On Thanksgiving. And I was like, this is horrifying. This is the most terrifying thing I could think of. And then you see this being, which in all other circumstances would be terrifying to see. But the way to describe it and the way it comes across, it feels more peaceful and beautiful. It has like this strange twist to this story. I when I read it, I was like, there's no way I can't do this one. Yeah, this is what I gotta do.
Beautiful. I got another view of beautiful, but nevertheless, I know what you're saying. The sight of it had to wake the sun up. I mean, can you imagine it? You're just driving along and all this happens.
Yeah, and much like the black dog did for that fellow in that story, kept him awake. Made him aware of what he was doing, and saved him potentially. Maybe these people were about ready to crash and die. He was drifting in an area that is, 2-lane highway in the back roads. So, you're talking not a safe place to be drifting.
I really don't know another explanation for it either. I'm trying to think of something I could say, but I really don't have anything for obviously there's two parts to this. They probably both weren't asleep visualizing this playing out. And then two, I don't know what else it could be that did those things.
It's a really bizarre circumstances here. Feels otherworldly, the whole description of it.
I think it's alien.
I don't know that it's alien or if it's spirit or something. I lean towards the spiritual side on this one, just because...
why would you have a spirit of a horse and an owl? That's just...
There are a lot of ancient forest spirits and plain spirits that...
It always comes out at night. Driving down the road, kind of fair game, I guess, out in the middle of nowhere. And
old cultures used to say that around midnight was when the veil was at its thinnest between the spirit realm and our realm. Late at night, sure, it makes sense that something might come out.
I always hear 3 a.m. hour, the 3 o'clock hour. Is that like a demonic?
I've heard that too, and yeah, I believe isn't that also called the witching hour?
Maybe. I don't know if I've had anything I could just say this happened at 3 a.m. before. I had that one thing happen to me, but what time was it? I don't know. I think I remember the time, but yeah, the crazy story. I guess you'd have a bonding moment with your son that two of you would never forget ever.
Yeah, for sure. Especially after they were certain that the kid was fine.
Everyone else would think you're full of shit, though, if you told that story.
I imagine they do. And the wife of the son, was asking them questions about it, but I can't imagine that they fully believed it, except for the fact that they were both giving the same answers, which is interesting.
Yeah, I mean, if you're like close to them, like family, you could believe it. But like, if you just told like somebody that, I almost said, told somebody at church, told somebody in public, they'd be like, "You're full of." Well, they might not say you're full of shit at church. Well, maybe they would. I don't know. But nevertheless, they probably wouldn't believe you.
Yeah, probably not.
These
And
two guys in some conspiracy here, you know?
I think immediately dismissing things straight out is not a good idea. Like if unless you, there's no way of 100% certainty of some of these stories not being true. You know? And we always talk about that, like, there's always at least some element of truth to it. I feel like people need to stop dismissing things immediately. They need to at least hear the person out. If they genuinely believe that they saw this, they saw something. It may not have been the exact thing, but they saw something unexplainable. There are so many mysteries in the world that to immediately dismiss something is insane to me.
Yeah, you say that from time to time on the show, and I think after doing the show, I'm certainly not. My mind's very open. I mean, obviously the stories are shocking and surprising, but I don't immediately rule things out anymore. There have been a few where I'm like, I think somebody was just messing with you.
Yeah, there's definitely been a few.
But
some of these, it's fun.
Some of these, it just makes you think, like, dang,
Yeah.
Well, man, that was another good one.
Yeah, I liked it.
I'm piggybacking off of that, actually. Let me get the music going. This is not necessarily like a scary story per se, but it's a little bit creepy and odd. So I was excited about sharing this one, kind of to take it down a notch, but you kind of already did that, but I'm still excited. So this is called Weird Thanksgiving Dinner. The story may seem more weird than truly scary to many of you. At the time, I didn't really find it scary or terrifying myself. I didn't really get that feeling until I shared this with others and got their perspective. I'd be interested to see if there are any comments any of you have regarding this experience I had. This happened with my ex-girlfriend on Thanksgiving about 6 years ago. For the sake of privacy, we will call her Kay. I met Kay in college, and at first, she was great. We shared similar interests and hobbies. We clicked instantly, and for the first time, I was excited to meet the parents of my significant other. I was going to meet them on Thanksgiving so that everyone could have dinner together. Kay never really mentioned her family, so I was excited and intrigued when she asked me to join her family for the holiday. Fast forward a week or so, Thanksgiving finally came, and I made the 2-hour drive to her parents' house. My first thought as I approached the house driving up the driveway is, wow, this place is huge. It's a gigantic brown mansion. It was very large but also looked very old. My best comparison is if you've ever seen the movie Clue, the outside of the house that looked very similar to that. Kind of the mix between a mansion and a castle. I knocked on the door, and almost instantly, as soon as I knocked, I was greeted by a strange-looking guy who opened the door. He was short, like 5 foot tall tops. He was bald and wearing an eye patch. I said, "Hey, is Kay here?" He just proceeded to look and stare at me and didn't answer. After a few awkward seconds that felt like forever, but in reality were just a few seconds, I saw Kate in sight as she walked over and happily greeted me and took me inside. As we were walking away from the strange man, she said to me in a soft voice, "Oh, don't mind him. That's just Eugene. He's like, I guess, kind of like an uncle." Kind of a weird way to put it, I thought, but whatever, I didn't think much of it. As we walked through the house, I was blown away. I had never seen anything like it. The ceilings were very high and the walls were covered with religious decor. I wasn't raised with religion. Some of these things and the images were foreign to me. Kay and I arrived and sat in what I assumed was a living room. There was no TV, no radio, just couches and some paintings all over the wall. The paintings seemed crammed together, trying to fit them all on the wall, it seemed. An odd choice for such a nice home. After a couple of minutes, her parents walked in. Her dad was clean-shaven, with flowing hair and glasses that were just big enough to cover his eyeballs, and her mom had long black hair that went all the way down her back and reached her legs. It looked like they were in their mid-60s. I was introduced, and we made small talk. It really wasn't bad. There were no awkward pauses, but the parents were not what I expected. They seemed a little strange. While the four of us talked about school mostly, Eugene came in and stood in the doorway and began watching us. After a few more minutes of talking about school, her dad got up and said he had a surprise for us. He walked into the other room and brought out a lime green stereo boombox that looked like something straight out of the 90s. And in an almost comical voice, he said, "This one is for you two. I hope you like it. It used to be Kay's favorite." I looked at Kay and she was smiling really big. I can't even imagine what my face looked like. Confused, surprised, however that could translate to a look on your face. He pressed play on the stereo, music began to play, and her dad started dancing with her mom. The music, if that's what you want to call it, was the weirdest thing I'd ever heard in my entire life. It was like banging of random instruments, very untuned instruments, and loud noises that honestly sounded like animals. Even more weird than the song were the movements that her parents were making. They just flopped around and were moving their bodies like they were puppets on strings or something. Thankfully, this only lasted a few minutes and we all sat down for dinner. Of course, the dining room was no different than the rest of the house. There were paintings and religious images all over the walls. We ate dinner in a combination of silence and her dad talking about politics and religion and how they were separate yet similar. I basically just sat there quiet and ate my food, which looking back at it was pretty unconventional for a Thanksgiving dinner. Anyways, after the meal, we went back into the living room and that's when her father told us he had one last surprise for us. In his high-pitched voice, he shouted, "It's now time for our annual Thanksgiving Day celebration." As I sat on the couch and tried to process what that possibly could mean, I noticed that Kay was extremely happy. I looked over and more people were walking into the room. There was somebody dressed as a scarecrow, another as a teddy bear, a lumberjack, and another person that I think was supposed to be Jesus or something, or maybe some other sort of religious figure. This is when I decided that I'd had enough crazy for one night and had to get out of this place. I got up and announced to everyone that I had a family emergency and that I had to leave. I apologized and thanked them for everything thus far and said how happy I was to have the privilege of meeting everybody. They all looked at me a little confused, especially Kay. They shared their happiness in meeting me and their enjoyment of the night and wished me well on my drive home. As I drove away, I looked in the rearview mirror. I saw Kay and her parents waving at me from the doorway. Where to begin? This was the weirdest, strangest few hours of my life. I am obviously no longer with Kay, and I'm honestly not sure she even came back to school after that because I never saw her in person again. We texted her a few days after the event, and she acted like everything was normal. I broke it off before the holiday break was over, thinking it would be easier to do so before I saw her in person again. I swear part of me thinks I was on some hidden camera TV show that night or something. Does anyone know of some rare religious group or sector where any of these things could be a common tradition? Or was I just at a house with a bunch of crazy people on Thanksgiving?
Okay, so I have some thoughts on this. So our family have a particular holiday tradition that we've been doing for about 25 years, maybe longer than that, called the Christmas Spirit that we do at every Christmas Eve party. And I don't know if you've ever seen it. Have you seen it?
I think so.
It's one of those things that I think we show people occasionally videos that we take of it, and people think crazy.
Right.
And so it's like we also have a couple other things that we do at Christmas that some people are like shocked.
Yeah.
We don't do anything outlandish. This is a little bit too big of a production. This is a little bit crazy. But I can also see like this being something that we kind of may have done if we got really into it. Like if we had a lot more money to, have like this large house, obviously, but also this like extra costumes part at the end. I was like thinking about it, I was like, man, if I was rich, I might be doing that.
Really? I think the teddy bear was kind of weird.
That was weird. That was weird.
Lumberjack.
The music and the dancing, that weird boombox.
Is it just me, or when he was talking about this, could you when I was reading this, could you picture the parents like doing the weird dance?
I could.
Yeah,
I can also
okay.
picture the music, because I don't know if you ever heard of the song, the album "Pet Sounds" by Beach Boys.
I don't know. I don't think so.
They recorded a lot of weird like sirens and clanging pots and animal sounds for that album, and so I wonder if it was Pet Sounds. So that was what I was thinking of at the time. I was thinking, I mean, this sounds like it could be that these people are probably older, and this is something weird that they do.
This is a weird way to break somebody in, though, Luke.
It is weird, and you usually have to prep people. You have to prep people for that.
Like, why wouldn't she say like this is about to go down?
Yeah,
Just be aware of it.
it was either harmless fun, or he was going to be killed that night.
Oh my God.
There's no in between, in my opinion, because like they end up like not talking, and she never ever saw her again and everything like that.
They text for a few days, then she never saw her in person again.
Yeah,
Then he broke it off before the end of that holiday break. So I assume this happened on a Thursday, Thanksgiving, and then by Sunday he had broke it off with her.
It sounds like that one Jordan Peele movie. I can't remember what it's called, but where like that
Get Out.
Get Out, yeah. Sounds a little bit like that, right? You know, like going to meet this
bit.
weird family, and then like if you don't get out of there, you're gonna be sacrificed.
So he asked a question here. Do you think it's a religious thing?
I don't think it was a religious thing. I think it was either a crazy person thing or someone who has a really stupid holiday tradition that they think is hilarious, but is only hilarious to them.
I just can't imagine somebody coming over for the first time and doing that.
I did it to my niece's husband. We didn't prep him on anything, and we brought out the Christmas spirit. And
Yeah.
Like he was just like the whole time. So,
But it's not like okay. But you guys probably had a good time seeing his reaction. A good time seeing his reaction, right?
Yeah, like he was getting used to us at this point when we bring this out. Like it was I don't know. He was in this story. This guy was put off immediately by like meeting this butler person. You know, like at the very start of it.
Butler. I don't even think it was a butler. Had an eye.
The guy, eye patch. I don't know.
Eugene. He's kind of like an uncle.
It just seems like the whole time was weird and uncomfortable, and they started doing all these weird things without saying anything. That just
Vid Games wants to clarify that the Christmas spirit isn't that crazy. He wants to make sure that is done.
It is not that crazy, but I could also see someone being really eccentric and doing something like that. At the same time, the fact that this was in such an uncomfortable location, and then like everything about it was off.
It was so uncomfortable. He broke up. He never talked to her again after a few days.
I could see that being something more sinister. I think there's no in between on this. It was either harmless fun that he didn't get, or he was going to be killed.
He just really, and a lot of people were commenting, but there was nothing really solid on the religion thing. But everybody's got an opinion on what it could be, I guess. But to me, it just sounds like you're one unlucky sumbitch, man.
Yeah, that would definitely be a weird ass night, and you would never forget that story.
How would you react? It's hard to say. You weren't there, but
yeah, like this is like we just talked about in that last story with the person that helped the old lady, or not the last one, but the one before. You know, you can't really, say what you would do in that situation because you're not actually experiencing it as it's happening. But I will say that I would probably be pretty weirded out, and I would probably ask for an explanation. You'd be like, "Hey, is this something that your family's been doing for a real long time?"
Jesus comes out.
That's
a scarecrow, a lumberjack.
I want to know if it was supposed to be Jesus or someone else, and if it was someone else, who was supposed to be. Oh man, that is.
Why would there be a teddy bear though?
I don't know. You know what?
So hold on. These people weren't there before. They came out of nowhere.
That's right. It wasn't just like the family members dressing up. It was someone else.
All of a sudden, there were extra people there.
Okay, that makes it really weird. Like, it'd be one thing if, like, the family members walked out and they came back in dressed up in these things. It would be still weird, right?
Yeah.
But for additional people to show up, dressed up, that makes it more scary. And that makes it much more like, yeah, I need to get out of here.
I mean, they could have got him right then, though, right? If they wanted to, like, what? I mean, what? They didn't stop him from leaving.
Well, it could have been an elaborate ritual.
They interrupted the ritual or something.
Yeah, like you have to finish the ritual before you kill something, right?
I don't. This is crazy. I don't. It's lighthearted, but it's also, I'd say, it's scary.
Yeah,
there's a lot of uncertainty here. It's very real.
And especially, actually, I didn't consider the fact that these were additional people. That makes it more scary. Like I said, if it had just been like the dad stepped off and it came back dressed as a lumberjack, it'd be weird, but would it be as scary as another guy shows up dressed as a lumberjack?
And teddy bear.
And then a teddy bear. And then Jesus.
Or whatever, yeah.
Yeah.
A scarecrow.
That's a lot to take in because now you have additional people you haven't seen yet that are about and are
they're just like laying in wait, you know? I think they're waiting.
They didn't show up to dinner even because this was after dinner.
What I said, yeah.
So that makes it even stranger. And he made a good call always to just call it for the night and get out of there.
Trying to see if I could get the exact wording here. I noticed that more people were walking into the room.
Yeah.
There was somebody dressed up. He doesn't say who. Somebody dressed up as a scarecrow, a teddy bear, a lumberjack. The other one's supposed to be Jesus or something.
So yeah, these are additional people. Yeah, that's scary. That's freaky.
You're really just trying to like relate to this. So now you're out of that, you're saying.
Yeah, no, yeah, that definitely made it a lot more freaky. I was thinking
you think it could be like a cult thing maybe, or
definitely
like a religious cult.
Yeah, some sort of weird cult for sure. That's what it comes across as. I don't know, but it's nuts.
To be a Thanksgiving you would never forget, that's for sure.
Yeah.
I don't even know how you'd tell people that. They would definitely think you're
making it up.
Yeah, like, that's an insane story. Like, why would that even happen? But crazier things have happened.
Yeah.
Well, we're going to pass it back off to you.
Yeah.
For your third and final story, right?
Yes.
Let me get the music going.
This final story is a little bit more serious, a little bit less lighthearted. So I want to remove the hat because if this is true, which I believe it 100% is, this is not something to like joke about. And so I feel weird wearing it. The story is titled The Man at the Door. I was 9 or 10 years old, living outside of Cincinnati, Ohio. It was the day after Thanksgiving, and it was particularly cold weather that year. I can't remember why my mother and older brother weren't home at the time, but my father, a barber in the city, was upstairs getting ready for work. I had just set up a new dartboard I had gotten as an early Christmas present from a distant family at Thanksgiving dinner, when I heard a car door slam and tires burn out quite loudly. Running to the door to peek outside, my vision of the intersection is blocked by a tree. My father, hearing my footsteps in a hurry, yells down, "It's just that kid down the street. He's about to buy new tires, so he's burning the ones out he's got." I go back to throwing darts, and just a few moments later, as my 10-year-old brain is reasoning the logic my father had just said, I think to myself, why did he slam the car door? As I'm holding on to the stone, I hear the sound of glass clinking together. It gets louder, has a beat to it, like if you took a bag of marbles and hit them like a drum. For I can only explain it as intuition, this seemingly harmless sound absolutely terrified me in this moment. One last pause, and then it meets me on the other side of the door. I'm paralyzed with fear as a man begins pounding on the door. I'm only feet away and at an angle I can't see out clearly. I screamed at the top of my lungs for my father. I hear him racing down the stairs as my ridiculous self is on autopilot, going to open the front door for some reason. My father lands directly behind me, having jumped down the last staircase due to my gut-wrenching scream. The door was wide open now, revealing a young black man, completely naked, beaten, bloodied, and taped at the mouth, and tied with Christmas tree lights. Tied head to toe in glass Christmas tree lights. He falls into our doorway. My father slammed the door and locked it. My fear is completely gone. This man is crying, talking through the tape, tied in a fetal position on our floor. I reach down to take the tape off. As I do, my father grabs me and launches me up the staircases, yelling, "Call 911 now." I sprint upstairs and dial 911. I'm sounding off every detail and fact I could think they need to know as I'm heading back downstairs. My father has thrown an old Navy pea coat over the man and is gingerly removing the duct tape from his mouth. I'll never forget the look in that man's eyes, welled with tears, breathing heavily, as he finally calms himself for the first time in a long time. As the tape comes off, he busts out into a full-fledged howling cry. The kind of cry you cry from your stomach, from your soul. My dad looks away. He cried like that, still tied up in that pea coat over him, until the cops got there 10 minutes later. Even they couldn't get him untied. He must have had 100 feet of vintage Christmas tree lights tying his hands together, and then to his waist, down to his feet, and back up again. I overheard an officer saying to another that he must have been tied like that for a while, as a smaller cord had embedded in his skin. As an officer talked to my father, pointed at me, and told me to get in the house. They walked up onto our porch, just enough for me to hear their conversation behind the door. The man, who was 32 years old, had pulled over the side of the road to help a stranded motorist. Someone who he thought was alone, but had an accomplice hiding nearby. When this good Samaritan offered his help in changing the flat tire, he was knocked over the head and put into the trunk of the car. The two men took him to an abandoned building and first tied him up with rope, and then repeatedly beat and assaulted him for 3 days, until he escaped, only to be captured on the road, and this time tied up with the lights. This went on for weeks, apparently. How long? I'm still not sure, as we had never got the man's name. I never saw anything in the news. My dad called the police station a few days later, but no one would ever tell him a thing. I remember the tire marks in our intersection stayed there for what seemed like years. I'm 31 years old now, and every single year around Thanksgiving, I think about that man and how strange it was that I was so terrified of the sound of glass clinking together.
Yeah, it's terrible. Traumatizing for multiple people.
It didn't occur to me to bring this up in your story earlier that this was my story tonight at the end was going to involve someone helping someone off the side of the road and a second assailant being waiting.
Yeah, the chat's already identifying how we somehow
did it again.
Yeah. It's really not planned, folks. It's weird.
Never ask each other really what
there's no talk about much about really before the episode. Not related to this at least. Not related to the show at least.
Yeah.
So it's really weird how it happens. But yeah, I could see why you took it down a notch and on the serious factor. What a horrendous crime.
Absolutely horrible and terrifying, and you put yourself in the kid's position.
Yeah, you can see it. Yeah,
hearing that noise and hearing the hammering on the door, and then seeing that would just shatter your worldview entirely.
I think people do a great job of when they say like glass clanging together. They do a good job about giving an example, and the marbles was a pretty good example.
Yeah.
Because I was trying to think of like, what is that? What do you like? What is? Then I thought about it after he said the marbles, and I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah, I read that story, and I was like, I was sick to my stomach. I'm sick now to my stomach when I read it just now because it's such a horrible, horrible story.
That might ruin Thanksgiving for you.
If you think about this poor man that this happened to, in the way they described him crying out, there's such a horrible situation. Utterly terrifying, and it goes to show you, as we said, you can't be 100% certain what's going to happen when you help someone in the middle of the road somewhere or anything like this. Like, you have to be aware of your surroundings.
Yeah, that's a good question. I had the same question. Did he survive, Luke?
He did survive, yes, but
because that's how they found all the additional information.
Yeah, so he survived. But they never really found out what happened as far as like capturing
who did it.
Yeah, and as far as I know, it never got solved. You think, he should have been more aware, but you can't always be aware. You always say, you should try to be aware, but you can't always be aware that you might be attacked at any given point. And it's just horrifying. It's a nightmare scenario. People are monsters. There are monsters out there. And this was the most horrifying story I could find tonight.
They didn't like want something besides the fact of torturing that person.
This was purely done out of malice and evil intent. There was nothing beyond just being horrible.
Hard to think of a bright side, but at least he survived. Yeah.
And that's the thing. Living is preferable in every circumstance, in my opinion. It's just like, because life is possibility. You never know what's going to happen. I mean, I would love to hear, what happened with this young man. It's just such a nightmare scenario. There's sometimes something you just can't get over. And so, who knows? But you can see how this kid would be forever changed. He said he's 31 years old now. And he would be about the age of the man that showed up that day. And to think about that at Thanksgiving time, I can imagine this is probably not his favorite holiday. And you think about that sound. I personally would not be able to put up Christmas lights or anything like that just so I could avoid that sound for the rest of my life.
Definitely makes you feel thankful, though, for what you have.
And I feel thankful that they were able to save, to get him inside the house, protect him, get the cops there, and see to him while they were waiting on the cops.
3 days. He was captive 3 days?
He was kept there for 3 days originally, and then he got away. Recaptured
for how long after that?
A week.
That's crazy. That would be the worst. Time would just stand still, it'd be terrible. Well, you can put that damn hat back on, man, because this is bringing me down.
The story is over now. I can put it back.
Wonder what the motivations were,
Just being a monster.
Yeah.
So many of our stories have involved pure evil.
I do have one more story. It's a very short story, but I think it'll be a good one to end on. Nothing good happening here, by the way, but it's a quick story, and I think it'll be a good one to end on for the night.
Sounds good to me.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, we can hear you now.
Good. Remember those commercials? So this one is called Gravy Burn on Thanksgiving. One Thanksgiving when I was a kid, my drunk uncles spilled hot gravy on my sister. We were all sitting down for dinner, and my uncle straight up sticks his finger in one of the gravy bowls and starts complaining that it's too cold. My mom tells him that she's busy. If he wants it any hotter, he can get up and microwave it himself. I watched this whole thing happen. He got up, warmed up the gravy, staggered back over to the table, then basically emptied out the entire bowl of steaming gravy all over my sister's leg. She was only 5 years old at the time, and the noise that she made as it started burning was something that I'll never forget for the rest of my life. People just jumped into action, pulling my sister's chair back from the table while another rushed to fill up a bowl of cold water to pour it onto the burn. That is how I saw the wound, and it was every bit hideous as you can imagine. The gravy had basically just burned some of the flesh away. You could just see patches of red, but the burn hadn't started bleeding or anything like that. It literally just looked like zombie skin you'd see in a movie or something. Just a big patch of it on my sister's leg. She screamed so loud the neighbors called the cops. They didn't even come over to check on us. The scream scared them so bad that they just called the cops instead. When the ambulance arrived, they drove my sister to the hospital, and they ended up doing some kind of skin graft. She healed up okay in the end, but like a year after this, she had this patch of skin that was a shade lighter than the rest of her skin. Given that we're half Latino, you could see it. It looked extra jarring at the pool the next summer. Oh, and we don't talk to that drunk uncle anymore. Not just because of Gravygate, but my mom said that it was definitely the beginning of the end for him. And just in case anyone is going to be like, oh, he has a disease, alcoholism. He was still an idiot after he sobered up. Booze didn't seem to have anything to do with it. How he was as a person.
Oh, shit.
That's another thing you wouldn't forget as a kid either, would you?
No. God.
We've all had things happen on the holidays. I'm thankful nothing like this.
That's horrible.
How long did he warm this damn gravy up for? Jeez.
I don't know, but I would have beat the piss out of him.
Gravy Gate. Yeah, Gravy Gate was actually, that's what it said.
I
Beat
mean,
the piss out of it. How terrible is that? I can picture this in my head, by the way.
yeah, me too.
Some idiot, some idiot uncle. It's a terrible story, and you would never forget. I'm laughing. It's not funny.
No,
The only thing I'm laughing is because it's so ridiculous.
yeah,
Very realistic. I mean, we share a lot of these stories, and it's like, is this true or not? This is just a terrible thing to happen on Thanksgiving.
yeah, nuts. Oh wow.
When he described the screaming, that really made the hair on the back of my neck stand up. Being a father, kids that age, I was like, this is terrible.
Yeah, definitely. Wow.
Super heated up. Yeah, I mean, I don't know why you'd warm it up that, but I guess if you're intoxicated, I don't know.
Fuck, that's rough.
It's like not like a evil person or like a ghost or a trap or anything we've covered tonight, but this is something that just a terrible thing to happen during Thanksgiving dinner.
Yeah.
It is scary too, may I add. I think it's pretty scary.
There's a lot to that, but man, that is rough. And I'm glad that they ended up being okay in the end. And, they had to get a skin graft, but I'm sure that they were fine.
Would that be the straw that broke the camel's back for the uncle for you too?
Is
there any coming back from that? Like, I don't know,
I didn't catch. Did he do this intentionally or was it accidentally?
They didn't say, but I took it as accidental.
So if it was accidental, I would definitely laughed him as hard as possible.
Warming up that long is absurd.
And then I would, he would have to obviously get his drinking under control at that point. I don't know that unless there was more to it, like obviously they said there was the beginning of the end, maybe he did other things that
sounds like he was known as the idiot uncle.
Probably wouldn't necessarily completely ostracize him, but I would be so ticked off and like I would want him to leave so that I wouldn't kill him. Then I would be like, you know what, you gotta get cleaned up.
Let us know in the chat. You listened to the story and I read it exactly as this. Did you take it as something intentional or did you take it as a mistake? Just an accident?
Like if it was intentional, that's a whole different ball of wax, and that would have been, at that point it's like, yeah, this guy needs to go.
We'll see what the chat says. I'm curious because I didn't take it as intentional.
You know what's weird? I didn't at first either, but then I was like, wait, was it intentional? Because like they got rid of him and stuff like that. And I was like, did he do it like, I don't know, it's like a stunt or something? I don't know.
Let's look at everything. I'm seeing accidental. There's a lot of accidental feelings on this one.
It probably was, but I would still be so furious. If it was accidental, I don't think I would ostracize him from the family,
Yeah, but then again, we also don't know
what else happened.
Yeah.
Yeah, because they said that this wasn't the only thing, and his mom said it was the beginning of the end.
Viv Games has a good point here. How did the uncle react to all this? That didn't get brought up. Was he sorry? Was he?
Yeah, that's a good question. Regardless of how that all played out, the inter-family, stuff like that, it's horrifying that this happened.
Yeah, I can almost I can't feel the pain, obviously, but I
can really see it happening. Like especially an accident, something being too hot and it falling over on someone. I accidentally burned myself as a child, pulling down like just barely not boiling water. Like it had just finished boiling, and I poured it onto my arm. And it got beet red and it was blistered and stuff. That idea of something ultra hot spilling on you.
Yeah,
I can picture it, and but also like picture someone holding something, stumbling around, and accidentally pouring on them, and like this sinking feeling in your stomach as you irrevocably scarred someone for life.
He was a kid and he saw all this, he said.
And then you see this happening to this child, and the just the total fear and panic throughout the entire family that would have just swept through everybody.
Just chaos, right?
That's a scary story because of how real it is. Yeah, that's nuts.
Will it make you think of Gravy another way when you see it?
I definitely want to make sure that nobody microwaves anything for too long. No one's too drunk.
He obviously doesn't think highly of the uncle. He started off by saying being ridiculous, sticking his fingers in the gravy or something. But what a way to end.
been a night.
It has been a night. Let's watch a video and come back and talk about it and wrap up. Let me find this video.
Some appetizers. Oh, yeah. That's what I like to hear.
They're delicious.
Well, thank you, my child. I made them by hand. Okay, here we go. I think the taters are just about done. I'm just gonna give them one quick whisk here. Okay, now, dig in. All right, now it's time for the turkey. Oh, what a beautiful bird.
No. Hey, man. Why don't you just relax and just let me do that for you?
Yeah.
Rest that little hand. It's my pleasure. But what a nice young man to offer. Let me give you a little pinch there. Come on. Oh. You know, a lot of people are kind of intimidated about making a turkey, but really it's very simple. You just have to know the anatomy of a turkey, and it's got over here just the tiniest little stink hole, but it's big enough to get your hand right up inside it. Ooh, stuff the shit out of it. And now a lot of people like to baste their turkeys, but I use this. I lick like that and get into the little tiny hole. I don't know what the hell that is, but I lick it anyway. Up and down. And then I like to stick that right on there. Gonna pull that off and bam! That just kicks it up a little bit. Good. All right.
Somehow I knew you were gonna play that.
Really?
I was thinking about it at the start of this. I'm like, he's gonna play the Scary Movie Turkey Say.
Oh, gosh. It's so terrible. You see at the end when he drops, like it's flying off the plate.
Yeah.
Turkey's just sliding off the plate everywhere.
Oh, God.
You like how they all were like, no. Was that you'd be saying too?
Yeah. Oh, man.
He goes on to ruin the dessert too, doesn't he?
Yeah, he's shoving his hand in the
They're
dessert.
like, is there anything you didn't hand make? He's like, oh yeah, I ordered dessert out. And then he ruined it too. Don't do that on Thanksgiving, folks. I don't know if it's not really a Thanksgiving thing. I don't know. Maybe it is, but it reminded me of a Thanksgiving dinner. That's why I played it.
Yeah. It's a turkey dinner. It's close. It's messed up.
Yeah, it is. That guy's a funny actor, dude.
He is. I've always liked his shows and movies.
He's in There's Something About Mary. He's like Ben Stiller's best friend who ends up being obsessed with Mary.
Yeah. He's also in Cabin Boy.
He's a good actor. He's funny. The stories tonight, man. Your thoughts?
They were all, it was very on theme the whole night, obviously. It's weird picking like a favorite one. For me, I think I was most entertained by the weird family thing. Like that story, I was cracking up, but at the same time, it was like, if this was sinister, it's as scary as, it was as scary as it could be if it was. If it wasn't, then it was hilarious. So it was, like I said, this was one of those things where I just liked that story because I didn't know what was happening. Like, we don't know the story, what they were doing. Both ways to me were entertaining because it was either terrifying or it was hilarious.
I liked every story probably equally tonight. I think they all played their own.
They were so good.
Their own part.
I really liked that. The guy who had to fend off the old lady and the man that were trying to abduct him, and of course, the mystical spirit and the man at the door. Those are two great stories as well. Yeah, like you say, it's really hard to pick like the number one because these are all so good.
Did they hold auditions for the firemen at the Thanksgiving event? I don't know. I think Luke would be the teddy bear.
If I had a bear costume that was, good, I'd probably wear one. Yeah.
The more we're talking about it, the less approval you have for it.
Yeah, because once I realized it wasn't the family members that he had seen dressing up and there's other people coming in, then it became way more scary.
Just waiting. Can you imagine for that, like, queued up?
Like in the other room somewhere?
Yeah, I don't know. Can you imagine being at this house for the first time ever and this happening? That would be insane. First time meeting her parents in the house for the first time, and this happens to you.
Yeah, that's nuts.
And what do you think about the waving? Did you picture them all like waving in sequence? Like, yeah.
there's definitely some movie I watched where somebody did that kind of thing. Like they turn around, the whole family's like waving at
In
them.
the door, yeah.
It, like comes across as equally wholesome and terrifying.
Yeah.
That's what I said. Unless without knowing the intent, it's hard to say, but it is weird regardless.
It's so creepy. I mean, like you had your story with the owl and the golden horse, but like this is all other creepy. It's like you don't know what was happening or what was going to happen next.
Yeah, that one was, I think,
and you don't know if they did it to somebody else before.
If I had to pick one to be my favorite one, that would probably be my favorite one because it wasn't horrifying like the man at the door.
Yeah.
The whole idea of what that happening was horrifying, but like it was weird. It was creepy. It was very Thanksgiving-y because of all this weird holiday traditions or whatever they were doing. It was entertaining as all hell because I was cracking up, but at the same time I was like, oh man,
I pictured it in my head too, as I often do when we tell these stories. Like I'm visualizing this scene.
Yeah, that's probably one that I can't wait to show people this video to have them watch that.
It's like the Dancing Bushman. Remember that guy?
The Dancing Bushman.
The Gravy Gate was low key scary though.
That was like sad that it happened, and then you was so real that it's happened and it can happen again. So it makes you worried about stuff getting too hot with kids being around. So you'll
think about it later. Yeah,
that was scary.
What an awesome episode. Happy Thanksgiving to everybody, of course. This episode, like I said, of course, Thanksgiving. The next one is Christmas is it December 2nd?
6th. I can't remember. I remember I checked it earlier today and I completely spaced it.
It is December 2nd is the Christmas episode. Awesome episode tonight. I like this theme. It helps us keep on track a little bit, but you still never know what's going to happen.
Oh, so fun.
Your Thanksgiving thoughts? Of course, we want everybody, as we near this year of doing the show, I think is the next episode a year? Over the next 2 episodes will be a year with this show.
Yeah. I think you're right. I think it was just before New Year's, a little bit before New Year's when we did it. I wanted to get some champagne for that one.
It also goes to New Year's, right?
Yeah, so this was a great night. I loved it. I can't wait for the next one. As far as anything, I hope everyone has a happy Thanksgiving, safe Thanksgiving. Turkeys are delicious. Hopefully it's not made by that guy in that clip. Yeah, I can't think of anything else to say besides that.
Piff Game says his thoughts, be sure to eat plenty of pie and turkey. I certainly can't top that, but I will say be safe with the gravy. Be safe driving. I guess it's an opportune time to take advantage of people on the road, right? And more importantly, just dodge the golden horse and the owl, and then be careful with strangers, going to strangers' houses. So a lot of lessons we learned tonight, but Luke, I'm glad to be learning the lessons with you. And thank you to everybody who continues to watch and support the show. We sure have a fun time doing it. So again, happy Thanksgiving to everybody. We will hit the outro and get out of here. Let me find it. Until next time, though, keep being you and keep being great. And where is that damn outro?
Jeff Townsend Media. CG, good night.
And the question is, do I stay here? Will you be back? Are you gonna come back? Will you be back? Are you coming back?